Hey everybody, welcome to Life in Between on True Chat, broadcasting from Urbana, Ohio. You can see I've got an excellent background for you today. As promised, I'm trying to keep with that theme of bringing you guys different settings. You may hear a little bit of wind, and I've done everything I can to get rid of that, but I don't think it's too bad. You hear the nice birds in the background, and you're primarily focused on what I'm saying. So if you're listening to this as the audio version and not the video version, I encourage you to head over to YouTube and watch the video there. You'll probably focus on a little bit less of the wind if you're watching it. So I'm excited to get underway, and we're starting a new theme. I've been talking about the past several weeks the necessity to hide, and we are not going to be continuing that theme on now. We kind of had a fairly good wrap up to it last week. I do have something next week I want to share that's in relation to it, but also plays on our new theme, which is going beyond fear and hate. And how we're going to accomplish that. And this doesn't just deal with discrimination, it deals with all kinds of things, all sorts of problems we have. And for me at True Chat, it's one of those things I feel like we really struggle with in all aspects of life, government, when you're talking about friends, when you're talking about local stuff going on, your family, all kinds of stuff. It radiates through in all these parts of our lives. So that's what we're going to be discussing today, is how to overcome those things. This is an introduction to our new theme, like I said. So this is just, scratching the surface, the big picture. I had originally planned for this episode to have a whole bunch of quotes, and I actually do have them, quotes from all kinds of different people, from all kinds of different places to share with you, but I decided it'd be better to just speak from the heart today and to give you guys kind of my input on what I think about the whole thing. So, politics this year are getting really messy, and I'm sure if you're a listener of True Chat and you've listened to the Current Issues show at all, which is the one I host, where we talk about that all the time, you can tell that we're all fighting, deciding what to do today and how to do it, and who's basically the best of the worst to choose from for presidential candidates. And I'm not going to take the show to talk about that, but part of why I wanted to bring it up is I think it's a very important aspect of what we're looking at when it comes to going beyond fear and going beyond hate. So fear and hate, and why are they connected? It seems obvious, but I do want to lay it out because I think sometimes people don't draw that connection right away. People develop hate because of things they fear. People fear things because they don't understand. And that's what True Chat's been all about from the beginning, is bringing understanding to people so that we don't have to fear things, so that we don't have to hate. Hate is one of those emotions that's very strong. It starts down here in your gut, and it just kind of radiates up through until it spews from your mouth, and you start saying things that you never really mean and you regret later. And that's something I've fought my entire life, and I want to start out with just kind of a personal story that hits home on where I could have chosen to respond with hate, could have chosen to respond to hate with hate, and because I didn't, it kind of set the tone for how I wanted to approach the rest of the things in my life. And back when I was still in high school, and I had talked about it being a very difficult time because I was not out yet as bisexual, and I wasn't prepared to be. There was a lot of constant, even if you weren't gay, there was a lot of taunting if you did things, the wrong way, or not in the predetermined way that society thought you should do it. And sometimes it was just said just to be mean. So, there was times where people had said, oh, don't do that because that's gay, or, you're gay, why would you do that, or what have you. But I was always able to kind of brush that off. What I had a really hard time brushing off was faggot, when people would say that, because it was a much more hurtful word than saying that's gay or this is gay or what have you. It really had a very different effect. So, I had dealt with people saying it here and there, and it made me cringe when I thought about it and when I heard it, because I still wasn't accepting the way things are. And I remember very distinctly one day I was, I had gotten into an argument with somebody, and I was walking away, and as I was walking away, they called me a faggot. And I stopped for a second. I was walking, and I stopped, and I was getting ready, because I weighed a lot more in high school, I think, which I've told you guys. I was like 50 pounds heavier than I am now, so I was, big guy. And I was, walking away, and I was getting ready to turn around and frickin' nail this guy, because I was just done putting up with that crap. And instead of doing that, which would have perpetuated the hate, I decided to keep walking. Now, this all happened in a matter of like, a 2-second time frame, and I'm laying it out in a lot more than that. But what had gone through my head in the decision process was I can either choose to do a couple things. I can choose to turn around and hit him. I can choose to turn around and spew back words, or I can walk away. Why did I walk away? Hitting him meant that I would get in trouble. It meant that this would become, a much bigger issue. Same possible effect from the words. And I'm not going to win with the words. I'm really good with them, which is why I'm on the radio. It's why I do True Chat. It's part of why we started this company, is I like public speaking. I like talking to people. I like explaining things, arguing, that type of stuff. So while I could have felt like I won by fighting him with words, that really wouldn't have solved anything, because he probably wouldn't have seen it that way, and other people wouldn't necessarily have seen it that way either. So what I decided to do was to walk away, to ignore it. This is part of, I think, a big way that we can overcome hate, overcome fear, is by ignoring the bullies. I look at, certain presidential candidates and point them out as a bully. And how do you deal with a bully? If you respond to them, they win. It doesn't matter what you say. It doesn't matter how you respond. The only response you can give is no response at all. And eventually they're going to stop. Now, some people might say that's the wimpy way out, or, it's not the manly way to do it. And maybe it's not. But I think it's the most honorable way to do it, because you're not engaging them. You're not giving them a reason to go on. You are being the bigger person. And that's going to ring through this whole theme that we're sharing, like I said, throughout this new theme that we're doing, which is beyond fear, and beyond hate. So I am excited to get underway with a little bit more detail on what I'm planning to tackle and how I'm planning to tackle it. But before we do that, you've gotten a preview of what's to come today on Life in Between. Having trouble getting through this opening part here, but we will be right back after the Life in Between opening. Welcome back, guys. Before we continue, I did want to let you know that if you haven't already, to download our mobile app. That's True Chat's mobile app, TrueChat. Search it in your phone store and download the app to start listening on demand to the best of radio. The wonderful thing about that app is you can actually also connect with our social media in there, which prevents me from having to talk about it all on the air. And if you're watching the video version of Life in Between this week, you can go down below to the description, and social media information is there on how to follow me, how to follow True Chat, and everything else you need. So again, thank you very much for tuning in this week, and we're going to continue on with fear and hate and how to go beyond those things and get to something better. Again, this is the introduction to that, so we are just giving a preview today. I'm just speaking from inside what I feel, some personal experience. Next week we're going to get into some more hardcore facts about why we should be looking to do this stuff and how we avoid this. So continuing on with fear and hate, again, I think that really where hate comes from is when there is fear about something that is misunderstood, or just something that you're afraid of. Even if it's something that you understand, you could still hypothetically be afraid of it. So we are going to continue on, like I said, with this theme. And the part I want to get to now is just kind of a personal experience of, I want to first say that I've been very impressed with how my family has handled my coming out. It certainly could have gone a lot worse. I've read a lot of stories where people have gone through a lot worse. So I'm not trying to make it seem as if my story is one of the worst. I do think there are things about my story that a lot of people don't understand and don't have the capacity to sympathize with. They can empathize, they can feel for me, but they cannot understand what I have gone through. They can just be understanding of how it must have been for me to go through it. Hopefully that makes sense. I know that's a little confusing, but I do think it's an important component of what we're talking about. So when we're looking at this, I do think that the story it's not really even a story, it's just more of an observation of, and I didn't realize this till recently, that over the years, my family as a whole was not one that was standing up against a lot of those hate words, things that bred hate, that bred misunderstanding. You know, whether it was on TV and there were gay characters in a show, and that meant that my family was less likely to watch it, less likely to enjoy it because it was just uncomfortable and they just couldn't handle it. Or whether it was like, you know, there's good examples of people in my family who would refer to things as that's gay or this is gay, you know, or don't stand like this because that's effeminate, you know, or don't stand with your one hand on your hip like this because that's effeminate, you know, or just things like that over the years that compound, that I don't think people realize how much that hurts somebody who is going through trying to decide what that is. And this isn't to make people feel bad, it's to help people understand how they can be better moving forward. My family really did almost a 360, well, I guess a 360 would be like that, but they almost did a 180, let's say that, instead of a 360. They almost did a 180 on where they were at and how their understanding came to be. They got very good about avoiding those words. There were some people that were big on using the word faggot. Not a lot, but some. Those are just things that are hurtful unnecessarily. They're not, first of all, they're not necessary to be used in any context, but they're certainly not something you want to use, you know, when it's a word that is designed to describe a group. You don't want to use it in a derogatory way that hurts them, and that's true for, you know, the LGBT community or any community out there. Just like, you know, going around calling people white crackers would be not okay either. It's derogatory. It's using it in a negative way. Calling somebody white trash, you know, that type of stuff. You're taking a descriptor about a group, white, gay, whatever, and turning it into something that is then used in a negative way, has a negative connotation, which is part of breeding that hate and that fear. So my point was that I had been living with that for years, and I think that is a huge reason why I had such a hard time coming out. Not necessarily all the stuff that I thought could go wrong, but more of because of the way that people talked about it, or because of the way it was viewed. There was this aura about it that was very negative. It was disgusting. It was, you know, unnatural. It was all these things that you don't want to be. All these things that you don't want to be. And that made it very tough. I had to eventually get to the place where I was so fed up and felt so trapped that I had to investigate and learn about this stuff for myself, because I just couldn't accept that it was that bad, that it was really that bad to be different. And that's part of what led me to be where I am today, to be able to do this stuff on True Chat, to share with you guys how I think and what I feel, which is a huge part of obviously leading to more understanding and hopefully helping people like me go through, you know, situations easier. And when I say like me, I don't necessarily mean bisexual, I don't necessarily mean gay, I don't necessarily mean straight, I don't necessarily mean white, black, whatever. People in general, human society, one group. You know, I'm not trying to narrow it down to, I hope that it can help a lot of people, because I think this show has always been about everybody faces discrimination, and I just have a unique perspective on how to share that, but it's something that rings true in very different ways for a lot of people. So going back to finishing up the observation about, you know, what I had been through and what I had done, part of the reason that I think it's hard for me to be home on an ongoing basis is my family has changed a lot, right, from where they started. They still disagree with who I am, you know, in my opinion. They would say with my lifestyle, and I would say with who I am, because I don't think it's a lifestyle choice. Now, that's a whole discussion in and of itself, but we're not talking about that today. With who I am, and that's very difficult. That's difficult in and of itself, to know that your family can support you but disagree with you, and disagree with you on something that you don't find to be something you can agree or disagree upon. It's just how it is. So that's difficult. And while the 180s happen on, they're much more sensitive, much more welcoming, much more understanding of things, it's still difficult because those old memories can still come up. And that's something that I have to work on overcoming, because they're doing what they can. So, and this goes to the larger theme today, and what I want to finish out with, of beyond hate and beyond fear. It's a two-way street. I cannot hate people for hating me, or that defeats the entire purpose of trying to break down those walls. You know, there's a lot of people have said you take on hate with love, and a lot of people look at that and they're like, oh, that's so cheesy, you know, it doesn't really work. It really does. You know, if you turn around to somebody who just called you a faggot and say, yep, you know, and I like your shoes today, they're going to be taken aback. You know, they're expecting you to confront them. They're expecting you to take them on. And when I say them, it doesn't necessarily have to be another person. It can be a collective entity that's going against people. They're expecting a fight, right? And that's what they're looking for. And I think this is very true of ISIS, which we're going to talk about this week on the current issue. So everybody looks at the Islamic State and says, you know, we need to go in there and we need to take them out. It's what they want. They want American troops on the ground. They want us to come engage them. And part of the way that we get past, you know, hate and past fear, which leads to hate, is we have to help people understand that we're humans too. We're just like them, you know. We do stuff differently. We live our lives differently. I love people differently than the majority of the population does. But that doesn't mean that we're not still all human beings. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. Our Declaration of Independence outlines it pretty well. I have the same right to love anyone I choose as anybody else. And, you know, a Muslim in America has the right to worship any way they want. Or any American has the right to worship or not worship in any way they want. A lot of times people say we're a Christian country. No, we are a human country. We are the, you know, peak of humankind, of a community where it is okay, where accepting and understanding are part of what we were founded on. And I think so many people have lost sight of that in recent years, where we get so divided on these issues and we end up, you know, most Americans are here and here. We've got the left and the right, and I don't know if that was just backwards. It was backwards for you guys, I think, but the, you know, the left and the right, whatever here. We got the people on the two sides that are generally close to the middle, and we've got a few little extremists on either side who are pulling people apart. And we can't let that happen, because that's not the country that we live in. Whether it's a political issue, whether it's a social issue, whether it's just everyday life, when you're arguing with your spouse, your significant other, your friends, your family, you have to remember that at the end of the day, we all share a common ground, and we all want to be happy. I mean, that's what we all want, I think, more than anything, is to be happy and to live a good life. And if we remember that we start with that common ground, then it becomes much easier to take on these issues that divide us so much. So that's pretty much going to wrap up this very big, broad picture Life in Between show that I've done today. And I hope that, you know, you guys can mull on this some over the next week while we get to our next episode, where we're going to go a little bit more into depth on some of this. And I've been trying to keep these videos to 20 minutes, so it does limit me a lot more on how much I can say and what I can say, but that's probably good, because everybody who listens to True Chat, again, knows that I'm a windbag. So before we go, I did want to remind you, though, that if you haven't already, make sure you download True Chat's mobile app. Again, you just search True Chat, all as one word, in your phone store, and you can download the app to start listening on demand to the best of radio. I want everybody this next week to work on, the next time somebody confronts you with something where you are against what they have to say, try to take a breath before you speak. That's it. You know, a lot of people would say, try to consider their point of view, try to, you know, whatever. Try to consider their point of view, walk in their shoes, try to see where they're coming from. Don't even do that. Just take a breath. Just deep breath, then respond. And you'll be amazed at how much less hate comes from your mouth when you respond. It's a lot less. It gives you that much time to process what you're going to say and how you're going to say it, and that leads to basically just a happier and a little bit nicer world for all of us, which, quite frankly, I think we could all use. So again, thank you very much for tuning in to Life in Between this week, and I will see you next time on Life in Between. Be the change.